Imagine this. The man sitting across from you hates you, not dislike, not disagreement. Pure, burning hatred. He's made it his mission to ruin your career, destroy your reputation, and see you fail. And here you are, across the table from him, smiling. Because in the next 10 minutes, he'll go from your sworn enemy to your biggest supporter. Sound impossible? Well, Dale Carnegie saw it happen, over and over again. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. This isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding a deep, unshakable truth about human nature. A truth so powerful, it can melt decades of hatred in a single conversation. And once you understand it, no relationship is ever truly lost. It's not about charm, tricks, or some secret handshake known only to a few. It's psychology. Pure, raw human psychology. The kind of psychology that has taken bitter, red-faced neighbors who wouldn't even look at each other across the street and turned them into business partners, building something together they could never achieve alone. The kind of psychology that made enemies on the battlefield, men who had sworn to destroy each other, lower their weapons, shake hands, and share a meal. The kind of psychology that's powerful enough to make political rivals, who spent years trading insults and attacking each other's character, stand side by side, united for a cause bigger than their pride. This is the method that has worked in boardrooms, battlefields, and broken families. It has changed election outcomes, ended blood feuds, and even saved lives. And today, it's going to change the way you deal with conflict forever. Because by the end of this video, you won't just understand why people clash. You'll know exactly how to turn even your fiercest rival, your harshest critic, your most unshakable enemy, into an ally. And here's the shocking part. It has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with proving you're right. In fact, trying to prove yourself is probably the number one thing killing your influence right now. This is about letting go of the one thing that's been keeping you trapped in the same endless cycle of arguments, misunderstandings, and grudges. Let go of that. And you don't just win friends. You win people's trust, their loyalty, sometimes even their respect. Let's go back to the 1800s. The United States was in chaos. The Civil War was tearing the country apart, and every decision made by President Abraham Lincoln was under the fiercest scrutiny. One afternoon, a powerful politician, a man with influence, connections, and a sharp tongue, stood before a crowd and publicly attacked Lincoln. He mocked him. He ridiculed his leadership. He even questioned his intelligence, calling him unfit to lead the country through its darkest hour. The newspapers picked it up, spreading the insults like wildfire. By the time the headlines reached the White House, Lincoln's advisors were furious. "Mr. President," they urged, "you must respond, write a letter, crush his career, show the country you're not a man to be insulted." And Lincoln did sit down to write. With pen in hand, he poured his frustration onto the page. Line after line, he dismantled the man's arguments, exposed his hypocrisy, and delivered blows so sharp they would have ended the man's political life. By the time he was done, it was a masterpiece of verbal destruction. Any other leader would have sent it instantly. But here's the twist. He never sent it. Instead, Lincoln folded the letter, set it aside, and sent an invitation. Not for a public debate, not for a showdown, but for a private meeting at the White House. When the man arrived, he braced himself for an attack. But there was no anger in Lincoln's voice, no accusations, no finger-pointing. Instead, Lincoln asked about the man's family, about his work, about his vision for the country they both loved, despite standing on opposite sides of the battlefield of ideas. The conversation wasn't rushed. There were moments of silence, moments of laughter, and moments where Lincoln simply listened. And something extraordinary happened in that room. The man's guard began to drop. His tone softened. His words shifted from accusation to possibility. By the end of the meeting, the man who had sworn to oppose Lincoln was shaking his hand. And just weeks later, he was standing beside him on the campaign trail, speaking to the same crowds, but this time campaigning for Lincoln's re-election. So what happened in that room? It wasn't luck. It wasn't weakness. It was a deliberate choice, a principle so powerful it can transform the most hostile relationships into alliances. It's the first pillar of Carnegie's method. Principle number 1: never start with conflict. Carnegie didn't sugarcoat it. He said it bluntly. You can't win an argument because even if you do, you lose. Think about that for a moment. In an argument, there are only two possible outcomes. You win, and the other person feels humiliated, resentful, and determined to prove you wrong later. Or you lose, and, well, you lose. Either way, the relationship takes a hit. Here's why. When someone hates you, or even just strongly disagrees with you, their ego is already standing guard like a soldier at a fortress gate. The moment you attack, even with facts or logic, you're firing the first shot. Their shields go up. Their mind stops processing your words. They're not thinking anymore. They're defending. And here's the sneaky trap. Even if you're absolutely right, it doesn't matter. Because now it's not about truth. It's about pride. Now, you might think the opposite approach, agreeing with them immediately, would work. But it often backfires. If you jump to full agreement too quickly, especially with someone who distrusts you, you seem insincere. They think, what's their angle? Why are they pretending to be on my side? Carnegie's genius was finding the middle path, the art of disarming without surrendering. The first step? Find one small point of agreement. Not the whole thing, just a sliver. Something they said that has truth to it. It could be as simple as, I can see why you'd feel that way. I understand where you're coming from. That's a fair point. These aren't admissions of guilt. They're openings, cracks in the wall that allow the conversation to breathe. You're telling them, I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to understand you. This instantly shifts the dynamic. Instead of seeing you as an opponent to defeat, they begin to see you as someone they can at least talk to. And once the conversation door is open, you have a chance to influence. But if you start with conflict, you slam that door before you've even stepped inside. I once coached a business executive, let's call him Ahmed, who found himself in a situation many of you might recognize. He was up for a major promotion, the kind of career leap that could change everything. Bigger salary, higher status, more influence. But there was a problem, a big one. Another senior manager in the company, let's call him Rashid, had made it his mission to block Ahmed's rise. Every meeting, Rashid would subtly undermine him. He'd question his decisions, highlight his mistakes, and plant seeds of doubt in the minds of upper management. It wasn't loud, it wasn't obvious, but it was effective. Ahmed's colleagues kept telling him, you need to fight back. Call him out in front of the team, prove he's wrong. But Ahmed had studied Carnegie's principles. and he knew that starting a war would only split the department, create tension, and make him look defensive. So he tried something completely different. In the next strategy meeting, instead of arguing against Rashid's ideas, Ahmed turned to him and said, "Rashid, you've been in this industry longer than anyone here. I'd really value your opinion on this new project I'm leading." The room went silent. Everyone expected a verbal battle, and here was Ahmed inviting his rival to contribute. Rashid was caught off guard. You could see it in his eyes, a flicker of surprise, then confusion. No one had ever openly asked for his advice without an agenda. That one question changed everything. Over the next few weeks, Ahmed made a habit of looping Rashid into decisions, acknowledging his suggestions and giving him credit when those suggestions worked. Rashid's hostility began to fade. His comments in meetings shifted from criticism to collaboration. And then, the real shocker, a few months later, when the promotion decision was on the table, Rashid was one of the people speaking in Ahmed's favor. They ended up co-leading a new department together, combining their strengths instead of sabotaging each other. And yes, Ahmed got the promotion. Why? Because he removed the battle lines before the war could start. Instead of making an enemy feel defeated, he made him feel respected. And in doing so, he transformed a rival into a partner. But let's be real. Sometimes your enemy doesn't just dislike you, they despise you. They don't want peace. They want to see you fail. So how do you win over someone like that? This brings us to the second pillar of Carnegie's method: principle. Number 2, give honest and sincere appreciation. Now you might be thinking, I'm not going to compliment someone who's been sabotaging me. And I get it. But listen, Carnegie wasn't talking about fake flattery. He despised that. He meant genuine, specific recognition of something they do well. Why? Because appreciation is a basic human craving. Even your worst enemy is starving for it, especially if they're the type who's constantly in battle mode. In the early 1900s, 2 railway tycoons in the US were locked in a brutal competition. One day, one of them publicly praised the other's innovative engineering design in a newspaper interview. The journalists expected an insult. Instead, they got admiration. Within weeks, the two were meeting privately. The result? They merged routes, cut costs, and doubled profits. All because one man dared to give genuine credit where it was due. If you're going to use this, you can't fake it. Find something real, their work ethic, their creativity, their leadership under pressure, and acknowledge it without strings attached. Don't follow it with a but, just let it stand. Now, here's the dangerous part. If you get this wrong, it can backfire. If they sense even a whiff of manipulation, you'll confirm every bad thing they believe about you. So Carnegie's third pillar is what protects you. Principle number 3, talk in terms of their interests. Carnegie famously wrote, "The only way to get anyone to do anything is to make them want to do it." That means stop selling your ideas, start selling their vision, and show how it overlaps with yours. A city mayor once told Carnegie's students how he turned a fierce political rival into a campaign supporter. Instead of defending his policies, he asked, "What's the one thing you wish our city would fix?" The rival said, "Public transport." So the mayor replied, "I've been trying to fix that too. In fact, I could use your expertise." That was it. No debate, no defense. Just an invitation to work on the rival's priority. Identify their core interest. What keeps them awake at night? link your goal to theirs. Find genuine overlap. Invite them to contribute. Give them ownership. This shifts the dynamic from me versus you to us versus the problem. But what if you've tried all this and they still won't budge? What if every word out of your mouth is met with suspicion or hostility? This is where Carnegie's most counterintuitive technique comes in. Principle. Number 4, let them talk first. Silence is your weapon. Carnegie discovered that the more you let someone speak, especially someone who dislikes you, the more likely they are to reveal their fears, hopes, and even vulnerabilities. And here's the key. When people feel heard, their hostility starts to fade. During a factory strike, management and workers refused to meet. A Carnegie-trained mediator convinced both sides to sit in one room. The mediator barely spoke. He just asked the workers to explain their grievances in detail. Hours later, the anger had dropped. Why? Because for the first time, they felt management had actually listened. The strike ended within days. I'll leave you with this. A young lawyer once faced a client who had been cheated by a powerful businessman. The businessman was furious at the accusation. Instead of attacking, the lawyer asked about the man's early struggles in building his company. The man talked for 45 minutes straight. By the end, they weren't just civil. The businessman offered to settle the case and later referred new clients to that same lawyer. Your worst enemy today could be your greatest ally tomorrow. But only if you're willing to do what most people won't. Drop the fight before it starts. Give honest appreciation without expectation. Speak in their interests, not just yours. And above all, listen first. So here's my challenge to you. This week, pick one person you've been in conflict with and try just one of these methods. You might be shocked at how fast the walls start to fall. Because in the end, Carnegie wasn't just teaching us how to win friends. He was teaching us how to win back humanity.